Hey Jim, so what are 5 red flags of a covert narcissist?
A covert narcissist often will use sob stories in order to gain sympathy, in order to gain trust. They tend to often be perpetual victims. They're perpetually misunderstood by other people. Nobody understands all that they do for other people. They'll use blame and projection when they make a mistake because it has to be somebody else's fault. So they'll pull out the blame and the guilt and all of that stuff, especially when it's a mistake that they've made. They'll often try to buy a person's affection. They might even use words like, I love you, I care about you, but their words and actions never seem to match. These are often people who will hold grudges for a very, very long time, maybe forever, even after you apologize for something. And they're often highly critical and fault-finding of other people, very resistant to any kind of negative feedback about themselves. They can't take any of that.
21 signs of covert narcissism. This is part 1. We'll go over 7 a day. Here are the top 7. 1. Covert narcissists are passive aggressive. They are quick to dole out backhanded compliments or use sarcasm or tease someone in order to put them down. Number 2, they are good at giving out the silent treatment. The silent treatment tells the target, hey, you don't matter. You're not even important enough to be spoken to. Number 3, the covert narcissist displays exhaustion. Hey, it's got to be hard to keep that mask on for that long. Number 4, they show quiet superiority. A target may be talking to the covert narcissist and the covert narcissist is rolling their eyes. They give a loud sigh or they even just leave the room. How rude. Number 5, they have paranoia. They think everyone's out to get them or to steal the target that they worked so long to hoover back. Number 6, they use triangulation. That's when a covert narcissist brings in a third party for comparison, or they ask a third party about the relationship that's going downhill just so they can throw that back in the target's face. And finally, shocker, covert narcissists are self-focused. They don't care or want to care about anything else going on around them because their needs are number 1, and no matter what, their needs will be met. Part 2 is tomorrow.
You can't say moms are narcissistic. That's so mean. I've had people's heads exploding in my comments for days now, so I'm just going to quickly break down why I know for a fact that my mother was a narcissist, and this is something you can use to tell if your mom might be a narcissist too. We know grandiosity, and we know the vulnerable narcissist and the victimhood and all that kind of stuff, but here's the really big giveaway that made me know that my mom was a narcissist. My mom was aware of her behavior. She had gone to therapy for years. She had been told by multiple professionals that she had to take multiple kinds of medications to keep herself in any kind of healthy state around other human beings. The walls of our home were lined with therapy books, specifically childhood trauma books, childhood development books, psychology books of every kind. In fact, my mom could tell you anything about the human brain and how trauma affects it. She was aware of her behavior, but she refused to take care of it. She refused to manage it. Instead of going, my childhood messed me up, I should fix that so I'm better for my kid, my mother went, my childhood messed me up, it's everyone else's problem now. And that's what a narcissist does. That's the big difference. They know who they are. That's why they hide it.
If a covert narcissist shows rage, this is what they do. Number 1, covert narcissists are cowards. They will never engage in confrontation directly. Instead, they will stab you in the back with a smile of an angel on their face. Number 2, covert narcissists show rage differently than overt ones. They show rage through passive aggression, neglecting, withholding, and through silent treatment. Number 3, they will rarely raise their voice or scream at you. They are more likely to use sarcasm and condescension as their verbal weapons of choice. They twist the situation around and make you look like the crazy one.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this devaluing phase. I'm going to tell you examples of what it looks like, and God knows you already know what it feels like. Gaslighting is the 2022 word of the year, according to Merriam-Webster. And if you don't know what that is, I'm going to explain it right now. It's a covert form of emotional abuse. Covert, under the radar. You don't see it coming. You don't even know it's happening to you. You thought you were with someone that saw you, that wanted to hear you out, that gave you the credibility that you deserved. You have no credibility in their eyes. If you have any kind of emotional reaction, they will then attack your mental stability. They will claim that you are crazy. They will deny the facts and say you're making everything up to abuse them. They can shift blame as easily as they breathe. They will question your memory and they will completely invalidate any feelings that you may have that puts them in a dark light. So let me show you what it sounds like. Let's start with blame shifting. It's all your fault, and we're having this shitty relationship in this argument because of you. Victimization. Why are you bringing this up again? Why do you keep on attacking me? I can't even feel comfortable in my own home. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around you all the time. This is very hard for me to deal with. You make me feel like I can't do anything right, like I'm just useless. I mean, this isn't fair. I try so hard. Can't you see how much I'm trying and yet you're still attacking me? Projection. All you do is think about your own needs and your own wants, and you put that on me. You judge and you criticize me. I just can't take this anymore. Trivializing. What's the big deal? I mean, you knew this when you came in. This isn't a surprise. I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this. You were aware, and now you're having this emotional reaction. I think you're just reacting to things that are made up in your own mind, because really, it's not that serious. Comparing you to others. Why are you so lazy? I mean, other people in your position are doing a lot more than you are. What's wrong with you? I'm running out of time, so follow me for more examples.
I want to talk about a gaslighting strategy that is used by covert narcissists called switching off. And this is a situation where a narcissist is still very much present in your life, but suddenly out of nowhere, they will turn off the expected interaction or reaction or involvement that was previously displayed. This is their way of communicating to you that they are bored, that they have lost supply, they are annoyed, they are frustrated, they are inconvenienced by your presence in some way, especially if that presence is asking for respect and acknowledgement. Switching off is meant to alter your reality. It's meant to create cognitive dissonance in your brain. And in conversation, it can appear in ways like stonewalling you or withholding information, withholding affection, or worse, infliction. It is purposeful and intentional, and it is meant to create confusion.
Covert narcissists are the worst kind. They hide behind this innocent mask while subtly abusing you with manipulative tactics. If you have a covert narcissistic parent, they exploit cultural assumptions. They tell children they want what's best for them while they hide the abuse and neglect. They create a persona of a loving parent, but this is far from the truth because they do not have your best interest at heart. It is common for a covert narcissistic parent to create a loving illusion of a happy family while targeting a scapegoated child or any other child that gets in their way. Covert narcissistic parents are good at manipulating family members to support their narrative. Children in this situation feel helpless. They struggle with the cognitive dissonance of what they are told about that parent versus how that parent actually behaves behind closed doors. Covertly narcissistic parents use indirect forms of manipulation, such as dismissal, redirection, minimizing feelings, gaslighting, and triangulation. Typically, they calibrate the abuse so no one notices or suspects it. People will not believe you if you tell them they have created the perfect illusion of a happy family. I want you to know it was not your fault. I believe you.
How does a covert narcissist go about isolating their victims? It is me, your favorite NLPMP and survivor of 2 decades of narcissistic abuse, and I'm going to break it down for you. You see, with a covert narcissist, They like to do everything under the table, thus covert narcissism. So unlike the grandiose narcissist, a covert narcissist is never going to say, you can't be with that person, stay away from that person, I'm isolating you. Instead, the covert narcissist conditions their survivors to isolate themselves. My covert narcissist mother provides a great example of this, yet again. For example, she turned me and the rest of the kids against our father by not telling us outright that we weren't allowed to be with him or that she wanted us to hate him. Instead, she would reward us when we talked poorly about him or acted out against him. We thought we were being empowered to punish the bad guy, but really, we were being conditioned to isolate ourselves according to her enemies. Covert narcissists, follow for more.
Part 9 of my series of exposing the covert narcissist. Let's talk about financial abuse. Financial abuse can take on many forms, depending if you are an income earner or if you're not. If you are solely dependent on your narcissist for any money that you may have, you are at an extremely vulnerable position. And they can take advantage of that at any time, in which they do. The flip side is that you do earn your own money, and they expect you to pay for everything, which was, like in my case, I took on the financial burden of pretty much everything. But how could I accept that? How could I say that that was okay? Well, it's because he groomed me very well. Because he had the utmost potential in life. Remember, I had to support him. He wasn't there yet. But if I only invested not only myself and my love, but my money as well, well, then he can concentrate on himself to make himself what he was always meant to be. They will go on and tell you that no one's ever believed in them, and that finally they have found someone that does. So you love them, and all you want to do is prove that to them. So you support them monetarily, emotionally, psychologically. You are their cheerleader, you are their biggest supporter, and you will self-sacrifice to your own detriment in order to help them out. Why? Because they have fed you a story that if they just get there, you will get everything you want in life. You'll get someone who is successful and who can provide and who can give you finally all the attention and investment that you deserve. However, it will never happen. Their money is their money. Even after you leave and you have children together, the financial abuse doesn't stop. I was so ingrained in that cycle of me paying for everything that I just continued to do so. I continued to provide for my children, paid for their school, and it was like nothing had changed because nothing had changed. And they go on accepting it. And the moment that you ask for it back, any kind of payback, when you're separated, it doesn't happen. They will come up with every single excuse to deny you and to say that any kind of payback is unjustified, making sure that you will still be financially abused. That is why the courts are the only avenue that can possibly fix this. God willing.
12 identifying traits of the covert narcissist. 1. Always plays the victim wanting your sympathy. 2. Tendency to show smugness and superiority. 3. Exaggerating their own self-importance. 4. Shows extreme selfishness, taking advantage of others to reach their goals. 5. Constant craving for acknowledgement. 6. Uses passive-aggressive behavior to make themselves look superior. 7. Uses judgmental and critical remarks, focusing on their own conceited views. 8. Extreme lack of empathy. 9. Extreme sensitivity to criticism. 10. Gets bored easily. 11. Inability to form intimate relationships. 12. Shows withdrawn behavior rather than listen intently to others.
I don't have to help you. It's not like you ever helped me. I don't owe you anything.
Now let me explain something. If you haven't yet, go back and watch the full video of the one I stitched. She explains things very well. She speaks very elegantly. She does a really good job. Regardless, this topic and this type of thing, the I don't owe you anything, that is the absolute number one thing that made me realize it just confirmed for me without question that I was not dealing with a normal person. So with narcissistic people, when they decide to discard you, anything, and this is where the phrase that they suck everything from you and they're leeches, and when you lose yourself loving and empathy or loving a narcissist, this is what they're talking about. The second they decide to discard you, or even sometimes on a lower scale when they're just upset at you or you did something to hurt their ego, everything you have ever done for them, all the good things, all the sacrifices, all the act of kindness, whatever you've ever done for them, all the love you've given them, the second they discard you means absolutely nothing. And you are literally a stranger walking down a busy street to them. It was one of the most insane things, and this is probably the number one thing that drove me craziest in the moment when I was dealing with, because I just could not comprehend how, after all of the things I did for that person, how overnight, this isn't like a long process. This is an immediate, like, especially in my situation, the night before we had one of the best nights of our entire relationship, and the next day, her family, her friends, everyone that I knew that was involved with us wouldn't talk to me, and as if I killed her whole family, as if I did something horrendous or cheated on her or something like that, when I did literally nothing. It was just flip a switch. You're done. If you're even talking to me right now, you're a burden. Don't even just pretending like anything I do to try to be like, what the hell is going on? I'm the problem now for even trying to reach out, when last night we had one of the best nights of our relationship, and now we are pretending like I'm literally a stranger after 12 months of an intimate relationship. What the hell is going on? If someone does that to you, I promise you that is not normal. Normal people, especially very empathetic people, are not capable of just forgetting and giving zero credit to anything you've ever done for them. You can't just flip switches like that. And when you're dealing with someone that has that black and white of thinking, it's not fucking normal.
If you are with an overt narcissist and something bad happens to you, they would scream and yell and basically show their rage. But if you are with a covert narcissist, they would completely abandon you. For example, if you meet an accident, a horrible accident, and make it out alive, they would not express the devastation. Your close friends or family may be taken aback. They would be shocked by this incident, but the covert narcissist would act as if nothing bad happened, nothing big happened. They would do the mundane things like take care of kids, visit you in the hospital, or do other stuff for the public display because they have to protect and enable their image, but they would never show you any genuine concern or care because they don't feel it towards you. They would just be silent, and that silence would be deafening.
Covert narcissists know how to set us off. They know what's going to really get under your skin. They know what to attack that's going to get you defensive and reactive. But in reality, like I said, they cannot control your emotions. Observe like you're a neutral third party. Don't engage with them. When their narcissistic behavior shows its ugly head, and it will, identify it for what it is and be proud of yourself for the knowledge that you've been gaining. Mentally reward yourself for this new skill of identifying manipulative behavior.
I'm continuing my second part on devaluing. Now, remember, narcissists choose you because you're amazing. You have all these talents and skills, or you're beautiful, all these things that they don't have. They're not going to choose a loser. I mean, what kind of a supply would that be? So they take all of your magnificentness and they use it as a supply, and they suck it out of you. And this is how they do it. They take the things that are amazing in you, your interests, your talents, and then they destroy them. They belittle them and they insult them. In my case, I like dancing, and I'm pretty good at it, I think. So what he would do was, when he would see me dance in public, if we go to a club, which was very rare, I think that I'm going to come back with open arms, and he's going to say, "That was amazing, honey." But instead, what he'll say is, with this kind of face, "Aren't you embarrassed? You getting all this attention from everybody? I mean, is that really the reason why you do it? It's kind of sad. All this external validation you need." Or he'll say, You know, it makes me feel really bad when you do that in front of me because I'm not that good of a dancer. So could you just stop doing that in front of me? Any interests you'll have, like the kind of music that I like, he would belittle it. He would call it very primitive. And well, if you like that kind of stuff, if you're close with your family or you have some really close friends, he'll start to insult them. He'll start to tell you that they're actually not good people and you should probably not hang around them. If you don't reflect back to them what they want to see within themselves, which is perfection, they will insult you. If you don't go to the gym enough, if you don't clean enough, if you don't do something that they expect it to be of a certain standard, they will insult you and call you lazy and call you incompetent until you start doing what they want you to do so that you can avoid those insults. If you have a great job, they will start insulting it, saying, well, other people make more money or other people are better than you in that. So maybe you shouldn't think so highly of yourself in that regard. And if there is ever a celebration to be had for you, he will not partake. Instead, he'll have a face of boredom and uninterest. Don't ever expect a narcissist to be interested in your interests, or at least to be interested in why you even have those interests. He'll never ask. He don't give a shit. Let's talk about DARVO. When you approach a narcissist with your pain and you come up to them and speak to them about it, this is what they're going to do. DARVO stands for deny, attack, reverse victim, and offend. And it sounds like this. Deny. I never did that. What are you even talking about? That never even happened. Attack. You looked at my phone? Or you talked to my friends? Who the hell do you think you are? That's so fucking disrespectful. Reverse victim. You're so insensitive. I mean, I'm going through a lot in my life, and I'm trying so hard. You don't even see it. You don't appreciate me. You don't appreciate anything that I do. I just feel so unseen and unheard. I can't continue like this. It's just too much for me. Offend. Oh, fuck you. You know what? You're so fucking disrespectful and insensitive. I am way too fucking good for you. You know that? You are at the bottom, and I am up here. So if you want a good relationship, well then step the fuck up and do what it is that you gotta do in order to make that happen. Because right now, you're doing nothing except complaining and wasting everybody's time, especially mine. Let's make something clear. When you approach someone that supposedly loves you with your pain, it's not supposed to end up in an argument. And the difference between a narcissist and someone who is just oblivious is that when you present the facts, when you present evidence and proof to a narcissist, they will double down, they will deny harder, and they will shift blame very fast. Whereas an oblivious person, when they're introduced with the facts and especially evidence, they'll end up saying, you know what, shit, you caught me, I'm sorry, my bad. A narcissist will never do that. Taking true accountability for the actual abuse that they are doing to you, it will never happen. Don't wait for it. My next two videos will talk about narcissistic rage, as well as their lack of empathy, especially if you're sick. Follow for more.
The covert narcissist is a particularly toxic type of person. They are the perpetual loser, the one who's the underdog. Instead of craving admiration, they seek sympathy. You're lulled into thinking that if you can rescue them, that once the crisis is over, then you can focus and shift into the direction of the relationship. Only it never happens. They move from crisis to crisis. You meet someone who's always perpetually in trouble, who can't seem to get life together, always has another sad story, you've probably met a covert narcissist.
All right, so I want to talk about something called the reverse discard, which is what a lot of narcissists tend to do. A few weeks ago, I posted a video about the cycle of a narcissistic abuse and how it's the idolization stage, then it's the devalue, then the discard. And sometimes the discard can look a little different. Well, a lot of this stuff looks different in whatever type of relationship you're in. But there's also something called the reverse discard, and that's just what I want to talk about right now. So the reverse discard is basically, all right, so in a regular discard, that the narcissist, they're the ones to break the relationship. They're the ones to break up. They're the ones to get out of it. They're the ones to file for divorce. Like, they're the ones to move out, like whatever that looks like. But with the reverse discard is that you're the one, the victim is the one that chooses to leave. And it's because of various reasons, but mostly it's because that the narcissist is treating them so horribly that they have no choice but to leave, that they have to get out for their own safety, whether mentally, physically, emotionally, and they have to leave. During the discard phase, they are getting treated so horribly, and the narcissist is not making any moves to change, like, or to make a change in the relationship. So whether that's like breaking up, filing for divorce, like moving out, like whatever, that like that person's not doing anything, but they're continuously saying how miserable and horrible of a human you are to them, but they're not doing anything. So you realize like you have to do something to get out. And this is all planned. This is all part of their game. And they treat you so bad that you have to get out. And I've been there. This is what my situation was. And you have to get out. And the narcissist will use that to play the victim even more. That they will go and tell everybody that you're the one that left them, that you're the one that broke the family apart, that you're the one that moved, that left, and but you didn't have to. You didn't tell them that they had to leave. You're the one that ended the relationship. And then they get sympathy from the next victim, the other people that they are trying to suck into their trap. And they're just feeling even more sorry for them. Wow, I can't believe that this happened to you, and that person left you and your children, or whatever it may be. This is all a part of the game to make them look even more like the actual victim and for people to feel sorry for them. So I just wanted to mention the reverse discard because it's a real, true, honest thing. That was, like I said, that was my situation. And looking at it now, it's even more twisted and sick, this game that they continuously play.
So walk your fine ass out the door and do your hair talk. Check my nails, baby, how you feeling? Hair talk, check my nails, baby, how you feeling? Hair talk, check my nails, baby, how you feeling?
The smartest people I've ever met in my life know exactly how and when to play stupid.
Part 14 of my series on exposing the covert narcissist. This time I'm going to talk about boundaries. Just now, I had to go to my ex-narc's place, and his parents were there. I had politely asked his father to not speak to me. If the children are not in our presence, there's no reason to. And what did he do? He called me a fucking bitch. I had previously already told him of my boundary, that I did not want him to speak to me, given that he had already yelled at me in the past. He disrespected my boundary. He didn't listen. And even though he called me a fucking bitch right to my face, even though it made me shake and it brought a tear to my eye, I stuck to my guns. I will never let someone treat me like that again. So I want to make sure that you understand, that I understand how hard it is to set boundaries, but you must. You cannot let anybody treat you that way. You deserve better. I deserve better treatment. I stuck with my boundary, and I did not falter. And he sensed that right away. He turned around and walked away. You must remember, they will not stop. Unless you say something and set up that boundary, it will never change. I lived in that home for 5 years with those people, and every day they assaulted me with their passive aggressiveness and under the radar insults all the time, on a day-to-day. and I never stuck up for myself. Why? Because I was trying to keep the peace. Well, fuck that shit. My peace comes first now, and so does yours. We have to fight for our peace because they will not give it willingly. So do not give up. So let's continue setting boundaries together. We got this.
When I walked in the club, everything changed when I walked in the club. He was looking at me like, wow, the aura on my body.
Be very careful of the covert narc. Your front room could look like this. And you can invite them to your house and you say to them, oh, this is my house, this, that, and the other. Let's watch a movie. I prefer to stay indoors. The covert narc is not like the grandiose narc. They don't have to be out there in the clubs. They don't have to be out there with the image-based stuff. They will be happy to sit in your house. Use up your electric. Eat your food. Use your resources. And because they don't mind being at home with you, they create a deeper sense of intimacy. And they're very sneaky, and it's very hard to spot because they're not vain, let's just say. They're not out here doing the most. They come across as an introvert. They come across as someone who doesn't mind chilling out. They want to settle down in this beautiful flat that's not theirs, that's yours. They want to settle down. They want to do all the things that you want to do, right? And the way that they love bomb you as well is not with like expensive gifts and flights and all the things that a grandiose narc does. They love bomb you with getting to know you, to finding out your trauma, and they will be quite open with you too. They will literally tell you about all the trauma that they've gone through, all the bad things that's happening to them, and how life is not fair. They will sit on your couch saying these things, and how they just want a chance. They just need an opportunity to prove themselves. And the kind of person that you are, you're hardworking, or maybe you've been supported enough to even get a front room that looks like that. So in your head, you're thinking, well, people supported me, or I've worked very hard for what I have. All that person needs, aka the covert narc, is a hand, is a helping hand. Let me help them get their life together. And especially if they say they're homeless, or they're trying to leave their toxic baby mum, their toxic baby dad, and they need somewhere to stay. This is a perfect opportunity to stay in your lovely house. So be very aware of these covert narcissists, because they don't run the same as the grandiose narcissists.
I'm talking about the 3 types of parent narcissists that Craig Malkin outlines in his book. If you missed part 1, The Communal Narcissist, go back to that video. This is the second one. We are talking about the covert narcissist. So this type of parent will use their child for emotional support that they should have been providing to their child. So this child often ends up being parentified or taking on responsibilities that are too big for them. This parent might have favorites among their children and favors the one that offer them the most support or validation. They also might pin their child or cousins, siblings, whoever, against other people. This parent is one of those ones I've talked about before that tries to one-up their child's struggles. What they're going through is always harder, more difficult, more important, whatever it is. This parent might be highly sensitive, emotionally fragile, and the child often ends up feeling like they need to take care of the parent and then mimicking these types of behaviors in other relationships in adulthood.
Here's 6 signs that you're dealing with the female covert narcissist. Number 1, she's absolutely toxic. Their wounded ego needs constant bolstering and massaging. They act all happy-go-lucky and that they're all positive this and positive that. I'm all about good vibes, but it's all a facade. They're really just super insecure and unstable as fuck. But you'll catch them acting like everybody else is just trying to bring them down. Number 2, she expects you to be a mind reader. She feels like asking for something or explaining herself is beneath her. She'll manipulate you into thinking that it's your job to know better. And just like she can't communicate her needs, she can't communicate her emotions. Instead of telling you how she feels, she'll just act in ways that are nasty to make you feel how she feels. This is called emotional contagion. This is why children of narcissists develop hyper-awareness of the needs of others. and also while they have issues setting boundaries for themselves. Number 3, they always assume the worst of you, but they won't say it to your face what the problem is. Nope, they'll just criticize and gossip about you behind your back. Even worse, the mothers will criticize their children and compete with their daughters, systematically and methodically targeting a child's self-esteem, making the child incapable of defending itself or standing up against the mother. Number 4, she will never admit her wrongs. They're always going to play victim and try to make you feel guilty for pointing your finger. Hell, even if you have proof and you can show them some shit that they did, like cheat on you, they'll come back with some shit like, well, what did you expect? You didn't show up in our relationship. The apology isn't coming and they will not hold themselves accountable. Number 5, she's a pathological liar. Everything that comes out of their mouth is a combination of half-truths, truths, and straight-up motherfucking lies. Their entire narrative is constructed to reinforce their ego. And then the gaslighting begins. Your sanity goes out the window, and before you know it, you're being called a liar. You want to know the crazy part? These women believe half the shit that comes out of their mouth. Number 6, she's preoccupied protecting a false image. Women raised by man-eating man-haters will attempt to be the perfect mother or wife. But not for the sake of the family, but so that she'll get the approval of others outside of the family. Want proof? Check her social media. Just a bunch of selfies and her family being paraded as trophies. I could go on for days, but unfortunately TikTok gives me 3 minutes. Follow me if you want to know more and learn how you can protect yourself from narcissists. If you'd like to work with me, go to my website.
People who are in recovery from being in relationships with covert narcissists often have levels of chronic illness, levels of trauma, and at the core often aren't discovering the truth about this covert narcissist until so far down the line that there's a sort of a PTSD and a shock once it all comes together. What are some additional signs that you may be in a relationship or you were with a covert narcissist? The first one is that you will find a pattern where you tended to be upset, but at the end of the fight, you ended up apologizing and making it your fault. They are masterful at turning issues around, being the victim, and then somehow making you feel like, you know what, you're right, I am overreacting, or I was expecting too much. Number 2, they're extremely passive aggressive. And so they're not the intense, classic overt narcissist. They have ways of being low key, like critical and controlling, but in very passive aggressive ways. For example, if you make something for dinner, they might say, this is really good, but you know what? If you just added a little more cream next time, it would be so much better. And that's fine, except for when you have that happen again and again and again. And the third sign, often over time, you've lost your sense of worthiness and self. You've sacrificed yourself as a caretaker, a helper, a giver, being an empathic, good, loving person, and it has chipped away at who you are. So those kinds of contradictions in saying that you're so great, but start to feel like daggers in your heart. They are resentful and often highly critical. And they are very resentful around things that don't serve their purpose in the way they want. For example, around intimacy, they can be very sullen and moody and cranky when they're not getting what they want in the relationship, especially around physical issues. Because remember, each act reminds them of their worth outside of the actual enjoyment. Every time you give them what they want, it makes them feel more valuable and more in control. But every time you don't, it's a direct hit to their sense of self and self-esteem. One of the worst parts is that others in your life will not see it in this person either until way late in the game. And so when you start to become aware of what's happened to you, often you will get hit with this, what are you talking about? I never saw that, which makes you feel even crazier and even more alone. And lastly, because their entire sense of value depends upon the supply of someone else, they will move on like that if they weren't already cheating, because they do tend to be very high on the cheating scale. So they will quickly find someone else to replace you while promising you that they want you back, and quickly try to turn your children, the flying monkeys in their life, everyone they can against you, making it that much more traumatic for you.
This time, let's talk about narcissistic rage. Narcissists have little to no control over their emotional outbursts. especially if their back is against the wall and they've been presented with some kind of undeniable proof. They have to deflect, and this is how they do it. If they see that you're not taking the bait, that means you're not taking the blame, as they're trying very hard to shift it on you. They feel like they have no choice but to explode. And that's exactly what they do. In my case, what he did was punch walls, slap himself, punch himself, get foamed at the mouth where veins are popping out of his neck. And he's looking at me with such rage that all you can do is stand there in total shock and silence, because you don't know what's coming up next. I was 8 months pregnant, and this man dented our steel fridge, so much so that he had to get physical therapy for his hand because he fucked it up so much. And in the midst of this episode of rage, he is accusing you of making him do it. You have brought him to that point. It is your doing, and you must suffer the consequences. He must exhibit to you the pain that he is going through. And the bigger the outburst is directly correlated to how big of the lie that they are saying, or how you have exposed them in that moment. They distract you, and then they break down. They start to sob. They start to cry. They will fall on their knees and pull their hair out and say, "I'm just a horrible person. I don't know why I do these things. I don't even know why you're with me. I'm just a horrible man, a horrible woman, a horrible mother, a horrible father. I should just end it for everybody. Everybody would be better off without me." And what does your empathetic soul do? You console them. "No, you're not that bad. We'll get through it. I want to help. You'll be okay." And you give them big hugs, and you show them love. And the pain that you initially had to begin with, that started this entire interaction, never gets addressed. And the next day, it's as if nothing ever happened, except you still see the dent in the fridge.
One crazy thing that happens in a covert narcissistic relationship is that you are forced to suppress the expression of your anger, the sacred rage that you feel towards the narcissist for continuously violating you. Anytime you try to bring up an issue that you are mad about, what do? Out of their vulnerable narcissism, they start beating themselves up. They start putting themselves down. They start wishing for death. In some cases, they start physically harming themselves just for one purpose, and that is to guilt trip you, to punish you passive aggressively, to make you feel that you are the scum on earth, such a terrible person, for making this person feel this way, for making the narcissist feel so bad, for torturing them. And what do you do out of your guilt? You feel bad, and the focus is taken away from the original issue. It is put on them, and they escape with taking zero responsibility.
The first time that I saw a red flag from the covert narcissist was when I was about 17, 18, and he was about 18, 19. We were playing beer pong at his friend's house, and he was the designated driver. So me and him were on the same team. So we were playing beer pong, right? And I was like, "Hey, I'll take all the shots for you so that you don't have to take them because you're driving home." And he was like, "Okay, cool, that's fine," and we kept playing. Once the game ended, he pulls me to the side and he was like, "Don't you ever effing embarrass me like that ever again." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Yes, you embarrassed me in front of all my friends because you took all those shots of alcohol for me. So you better not ever do that again, ever in your life, because that was embarrassing." And of course, I'm standing there like, did this just happen? So I was like, "I'm so sorry, like that wasn't my intention." And he switched it up and he hugged me, he kissed me, and he was like, "It's okay, just don't do it again, I love you." And so we had a great rest of the night. And I kind of swept that under the rug because he switched up and started love bombing me. And I was like, okay, whatever, moving on. This is probably a regular like couple thing. Couples go through this stuff and argue like this. And now I'm like, nope, that's the second I should have walked out of that party and never saw him again. Look out for those signs when they rage, because that is not normal.
Whenever I talk about narcissists, I am exclusively talking about covert narcissists. There's a real misconception about what a covert narcissist is. I get all kinds of comments saying a covert narcissist would never do X. Covert in this context really just means that they're harder to spot. It's a complete myth that covert narcissists don't yell, don't hit, don't scream. Narcissistic abuse is domestic violence. So I would start with looking up the power and control wheel. Have you ever seen the power and control wheel? You can click the link in my bio, click on freebies, and download one. Covert narcissists often present themselves as a really nice person. More often than not, everybody likes them. I hosted a webinar called How to Recognize and Overcome Narcissistic Abuse. That's also a really great place to start. The panel includes a psychologist, a therapist, 2 narcissists, and a coach. There's a real insidiousness and intention behind covert narcissistic abuse.
You see, a covert narcissist in the name. They want to be covert about what they're doing. They're wanting to control you, manipulate you, coerce you into doing whatever it is that they won't want. And quite often, for a covert narcissist, they're going to be fishing for compliments, fishing for you to fill their cup. Yeah, they're going to want you to take it from you, but that's okay. The silent treatment is a way that they can abuse you, but that they can defend. Because they can then use excuses like, you hurt me, like it was your fault, like I'm doing this because of you. It's easy for them to spin it around and then to gaslight you, to make you doubt yourself, to take on that blame, that sufferance and that pain, and for them to walk away with an apology, for them to walk away with the thing that they were fishing to get your attention, you to build their ego up.
Let's talk about covert narcissists for a minute. What's the deal with them and why do they get talked about so much on creators' pages? The reason that I think covert narcissists get talked about probably a lot more than other types of narcissists is because covert narcissists are most likely the one that you are going to get tricked by in a relationship. Covert narcissists are also known as vulnerable narcissists. They are perpetual victims and they truly believe that the world owes them something. The types of people who will get lured in by covert narcissists are empaths, codependents, and people pleasers. The reason for this is that covert narcissists prey on your empathy and then exploit it. My ex was a covert narcissist, and the way he did this was the very first time we ever hung out, he immediately went into his traumatic childhood. He told me the whole extended version of all the horrific things that had happened to him, and immediately my heart dropped and I felt so sorry for him, and all I wanted was to be that caretaker and to be there for him like no one else ever was, because that's my natural instinct. As a codependent, people pleaser empath, I've always been the type that showed up to be that caretaker, to be the, to play that role. And see, covert narcissists know this about you and they love this about you because they can sink their teeth into that part of you and use that to reel you into the relationship. Once they have you, boom, everything changes. Covert narcissists are the type to heavily rely on the guilt and shame game. Whereas a malignant narcissist might use violence or extreme anger, a covert narcissist is more likely to use guilt tripping, projection, shaming. It'll be lots of, you don't care about me. No one ever shows up for me and you don't either. You didn't even remember this. You don't care enough to bring me this. This type of thing will also intensify in the relationship. So when they start not getting their way, the threats will get more and more, where they might threaten to unalive themselves. They will weaponize their mental health. They will pretend to be sick and fake illnesses. Covert narcissists have a hard time holding down jobs because it's always someone else's fault. They can't be held accountable. The world is out to get them. And in my opinion, they are truly one of the most psychologically damaging types of narcissists because of those severe head games that they play on their victims.